When Mike Tomlin stepped down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers after the 2025 season, the immediate reaction around the league was respect. Players, past and present, praised him. Analysts called him one of the defining leaders of his era. Opposing coaches acknowledged his longevity and consistency. For nearly 2 decades, Tomlin had been the steady voice in Pittsburgh, never publicly rattled, never prone to emotional outbursts, never interested in settling scores through the media. Now, ironically, that same silence may be turning him into an easy target. The drama unfolding among former Steelers players isn't about X's and O's. It's not about playoff collapses or personnel decisions. It's about narrative control and who gets to shape Tomlin's legacy in the vacuum he refuses to fill. According to ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler, Tomlin's refusal to respond publicly to criticism might be exactly why some former players feel emboldened to take shots. Mike Tomlin doesn't say a thing, Fowler explained. He would never address this kind of thing, but because of that, he becomes a little bit of an easy target. That's the paradox of restraint in the modern media era. In today's NFL ecosystem, everyone has a platform. Everyone has a podcast. Every comment becomes a clip. Every clip becomes a headline. And once the content machine starts churning, silence isn't neutrality. It's open space. The spark for this particular controversy came from James Harrison, whose comments about Tomlin weren't just critical. They were perceived by many as personal. Harrison's remarks created immediate tension among former teammates, especially because the broader reaction to Tomlin stepping down had been overwhelmingly positive. Then there's Ben Roethlisberger, who has expressed critiques of Tomlin in the past, but Roethlisberger's tone has generally been measured, often acknowledging that Tomlin earned the right to pursue other opportunities. His comments felt reflective rather than combative. Harrison's did not. That distinction matters, because once criticism crosses from professional disagreement into perceived character attacks, it stops being about football and starts being about loyalty. And loyalty runs deep in Pittsburgh. Former linebacker Joey Porter Sr. didn't hold back when he appeared on Cam Hayward's podcast during Super Bowl week. Porter went directly at both Harrison and Roethlisberger, questioning actions, motivations, and credibility. His words quickly became national headlines, not just because of what he said, but because of who was saying it. When former teammates publicly dismantle each other's reputations, it stops being a disagreement and starts resembling a fracture. Porter's defense of Tomlin wasn't subtle. He didn't just support his former coach. He attacked those who criticized him. He challenged Harrison's legacy. He scrutinized Roethlisberger's behavior as both a teammate and a person. In doing so, he escalated what could have remained commentary into conflict, and the ripple effect was immediate. Former offensive lineman Zach Banner jumped in strongly to defend Tomlin, calling out Harrison and dismissing the criticism. Social media filled with reaction videos, comment threads, reposted clips, and player subtweets. This is the new reality of NFL discourse. The locker room has extended into the digital sphere. What makes this situation unique is Tomlin's complete absence from it. He hasn't responded. He hasn't issued statements. He hasn't corrected narratives. He hasn't even subtly nudged the conversation in another direction. That restraint is consistent with who he's always been. For 19 seasons, Tomlin mastered the art of saying just enough and nothing more. But in an era where perception spreads instantly and repetition can distort context, silence carries risk. Fowler's point wasn't that Tomlin is weak. It was that his refusal to engage leaves room for others to define the conversation. When Harrison speaks and Tomlin doesn't respond, Harrison's words sit unchallenged unless other players intervene. And when they do, the situation becomes combustible. There's also an emotional layer here. Tomlin's departure wasn't a firing. It wasn't scandal-driven. It wasn't a public fallout. It was a step down that many believed was either mutually understood or quietly anticipated. That ambiguity fuels speculation. Some former players view Tomlin as a culture architect who shaped their careers and personal growth. Others may carry unresolved frustrations about roles, usage, discipline, or accountability. In retirement, those feelings sometimes surface more freely. What we're witnessing isn't just disagreement about a coach, it's a struggle over legacy. Tomlin's tenure in Pittsburgh included consistent winning seasons, playoff appearances, and a Super Bowl title. but it also included postseason droughts, frustrating exits, and moments where critics questioned whether the franchise plateaued. Former players will inevitably interpret that history through personal experience. The challenge is that public interpretation is no longer filtered. In past eras, these conversations happened privately, at charity events, reunions, or behind closed doors. Now they happen on podcasts with millions of listeners. And once words are spoken into a microphone, they live forever. The irony is that Tomlin's greatest strength, emotional control, may be what's allowing this storm to grow around him. He will not defend himself publicly. He will not retaliate. He will not escalate. He will not escalate. That's not his style. But others are more than willing to step into that vacuum. The result is a public feud among former Steelers greats that feels uncomfortable to watch. Fans who once celebrated these players together now see them trading verbal blows. Headlines focus not on Tomlin's accomplishments, but on who said what about whom. The narrative shifts from appreciation to division. And yet, this may all fade quickly. NFL news cycles move fast. Free agency will begin. Draft speculation will dominate coverage. Training camp storylines will replace offseason drama. Eventually, even the most heated podcast debates lose oxygen. But the episode reveals something deeper about the modern sports environment. Silence used to command respect. Now it can invite speculation. Tomlin likely understands that. He also likely understands that engaging would only amplify the noise. By staying quiet, he preserves his brand, disciplined, composed, unmoved by outside chatter. The question is whether that discipline allows others to shape his story in ways he would never endorse. Ultimately, this saga says as much about the media age as it does about Tomlin or his former players. Everyone has a platform. Everyone has an audience. Everyone has a version of the truth. And in that environment, even a coach who built a reputation on control can find himself at the center of chaos, not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. For Steelers fans, it's uncomfortable to see franchise icons publicly clashing, but it may also be inevitable. Legacies are rarely tidy. Emotions linger. Perspectives differ. Tomlin's legacy, however, won't ultimately be defined by podcast exchanges. It will be defined by 2 decades of leadership in Pittsburgh. The noise will pass. The resume will remain. When Mike Tomlin stepped down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers after the 2025 season, the immediate reaction around the league was respect. Players past and present praised him. Analysts called him one of the defining leaders of his era. Opposing coaches acknowledged his longevity and consistency. For nearly 2 decades, Tomlin had been the steady voice in Pittsburgh, never publicly rattled, never prone to emotional outbursts, never interested in settling scores through the media. Now, ironically, that same silence may be turning him into an easy target. The drama unfolding among former Steelers players isn't about X's and O's. It's not about playoff collapses or personnel decisions. It's about narrative control and who gets to shape Tomlin's legacy in the vacuum he refuses to fill. According to ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler, Tomlin's refusal to respond publicly to criticism might be exactly why some former players feel emboldened to take shots. Mike Tomlin doesn't say a thing, Fowler explained. He would never address this kind of thing, but because of that, he becomes a little bit of an easy target. That's the paradox of restraint in the modern media era.